Swarupa Sarva Swarupa Paramahamsa Namostute. Jnana Swarupa Gyeha Swarupa Yatri Swarupa Namostute. Nitya Swarupa Satya Swarupa Mukta Swarupa Namostute. Shuddha Swarupa Buddha Swarupa Sharada Seva.
Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Pranas Chakshuhu Shrotra Matra Balamindriyani Chasarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Mahabrahma Nirakuryam Mama Brahma Nirakaroda Nirakara Namastva Nirakarana Meyastu Taratmani Nirate Ya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Mayi Shantu Te Mayi Shantu. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. May our bodies experience great health. May our life force flow unimpeded. May our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman. For the Upanishads state that all is Brahman. Therefore, may we never deny Brahman. May Brahman never deny us. May there be no rejection of Brahman ever by us. We who are dedicated to the realization of the Atman within. May all the divine qualities cited in the non-dual scriptures also abide within us. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Annapurna Sadapurna Shankara Pranavalabhe Jnana Vairagyam Siddhartham Bhiksham Dehi Cha Parvati. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The scriptures say that all food is Brahman, that all is Brahman. Therefore, may the Divine Mother Shakti bless us all with prasadam, clarified food. May the nutritious power in this food bless us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karva Vahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshvahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. And with those few Sanskrit slokas from the scriptures of the Upanishads and other dharmic teachings of India, we begin this series of classes. I think 5 classes we're going to have on the subject of food, prana, and Brahman, or divine reality. So, Shakti, Brahman, we have a Atman, if you want to say the same way. We have many names for divine reality in this Vedantic religion and philosophy that we practice. So we're going to approach those with 1 or 2 new charts that I've prepared for you. And there are various lists, because as you know, I'm not a listless person. I have some 250 of these visuals now. Over the last 2 or 3 years I've created so that the eyes can be engaged as well as the ears. Integration is always a great subject to bring up in terms of yoga and Vedanta. Of course, yoga infers that everything's always and ever integrated. It doesn't need to be integrated. But from the standpoint of the mind that doesn't know that, called avidya mind, this mind that's still in error or in ignorance of its true nature as Atman, then it needs to be explained precisely. And thankfully, the scriptures and the seers of India give us that concession. They give us a 3-tiered level of teaching called Advaita, which is, of course, for those who have no problems or troubles whatsoever and are just living in bliss all the time, uninterrupted and unalloyed. And then Vishishtadvaita is called qualified non-dualism. That's where the teachings come down to that level of qualified non-dualism, because the non-dual sayings don't really have any fingerholds to them or much to grab onto. You understand them or you don't. And if you do, that's very auspicious for you. You're in a high state of mind all the time. If you don't quite understand them yet, then you have this fingerhold or this ledge that you can climb onto until you do receive such a boon as non-dual understanding, Advaita, Vedanta. That Vishishta Advaita, then qualified non-dualism, is a station where the teachings can be given out, the Dharma, and received, and can prepare the mind then by degrees. It's a matter of qualification, because you can hear a non-dual statement 1 year and it'll go right over your head, or you'll maybe even think you understand it. But then you'll contemplate the teachings for a year or two, or maybe more. And then all of a sudden, one day, almost unasked, and as a total surprise, that you'll hear that statement again, and it'll make deep, profound sense to you. Not only sense to you, it'll actually startle you inside. It'll give you jada samadhi. Jada means stunned state. Sri Ramakrishna explained that samadhi to us. And you hear something or see something that's very profound, perceive something that's very profound, all of a sudden it stuns the mind. It stops thinking, the senses shut off, and the tongue may cleave to the roof of the mouth, and your eyes naturally go up in your head. You might get goosebumps. I don't know what the scientific term for goosebumps is, but here in Hawaii we call it chicken skin, brada. Chicken skin. And in the local dialect, we have a word for it, a name for it. But that'll happen, horripilation of the flesh, maybe that's a good way of putting it. To see. Doesn't have anything to do with horror, though. And also hairs will stand on the ends of your arms and so forth. They describe those as symptoms in the Kundalini Yoga system, actually. Those are actually symptoms that are listed for a person who has that stunned state of samadhi. And no telling what's going on inside of a being like that, what they're seeing, what they're hearing. Rather like the dream state, how it can be for you if you've purified the waking state, then the dream state tends to become pure. You can't really ask, how do I have lucid dreams, until you've satisfied the criterion for having a lucid waking state. See, you can't go around, I just thought of several words that I shouldn't use for it, but go around making a lot of errors in your waking state and then expect your dreams to be clear and wonderful and all warm and fuzzy, as they say. So you get yourself morally, ethically together on the waking state, and you do certain practices and prepare for the mind to go into a state like that. And then you'll understand. Until then, you can be a disbeliever, or you can have nothing to do with it, or you can doubt it. But when it happens to you, then that's when doubts and fears are removed. the curtain of nescience goes up. See, it's not like rolling down the curtain invisible, you see, when you die and joining the choir celestial. See, it's not like a heavenly experience where you see angels and so forth. It's a name and form stopping experience. That's a good way to put it, because in heaven you still have names and forms, right? An angel is a form. Come, give you a vision, and so forth. But this higher samadhi we talk about is a name form removal device. See, especially at its highest level. And you may go into a stunned state. Now, take for instance the wilderness, or the mount, or under the bo tree. I'm talking about Christ and Moses and Jesus. Christ and Moses and Buddha under the bo tree. Then they all had this stunned state, and they had to wait for it. They had to qualify for it with austerities and practices. Austerities are at different levels, as we'll see by some of the visuals I have to show you today on this subject. But they all had this state for a number of days. There's also the dark night of the soul, so you were to believe too. So it's not like you get it right away, just when you sit down under a tree. See, you may have to prepare for it for years, and then when you do sit under the tree, you may still have nonsense going on in your mind, because you're at the surface levels of things having to operate there. So it's not your fault, really. You see, the gunas are shifting all the time in nature, and you're a part of them. Your mind is a part of them, that is. Not the real you, but your mind is a part of them. So you're having these experiences that are keeping you at the surface level. Sort of like the old tuck and dive move, when you're in a swimming pool. Before you learned to tuck and dive, you couldn't penetrate the surface, right? You were just a kid splashing around on the tops, and you didn't know the wonders of the depths, you see. That you could come under the other kids and pull their feet and so forth. Have a lot more fun, you see. So when you learn to tuck and dive, you penetrated the surface. So it's very hard to penetrate the surface of conventional religious thinking and ritual and so forth. But when you can do that, then you have these deeper experiences that are vouchsafed to you. We say by the Divine Mother of the Universe, or by your own Atman. So they will come to you. So you'll be in preparation for those, maybe for decades. And you're willing to wait, for them to happen to you, because you have this deep faith, and you have the courage of your convictions. You're not a spook or a ghost that makes a run at a thing and then gives up, backs off and gives up too easy. You have the courage of your convictions, or sometimes we like to say, follow your original intention. All of a sudden you have this great thought. That's your original intention, to go do something profound, you see. And then you start doubting it days later, you see. You start into it, I don't think I'll do this, and you back off. So it happens so much, and it's so unfortunate. The original intention oftentimes is that pure thought you had that came from a pure place, which you had been preparing for all these years, and you can't doubt it. So when that curtain of nescience lifts up and doubt goes away and fear goes away, then you, or at least it thins, then you can see the divine reality within inside of yourself. And if you can see it inside yourself, you can see it in everyone else, in everything else, whether they see it or not. See, that's kind of the rub on the situation. Don't you see that? No, I don't see that. See, look at that light. All I see is darkness. I had a vision of an angel. Well, that's nonsense, you see. So Sri Ramakrishna told a story once of a blind man, you see. So he wanted to know whether God was with form or beyond form. And in India, they ponder these kinds of things. Mm. You see, they don't just say, I believe or I don't believe. Or I don't even entertain the thought of believing. It doesn't even occur to me. I don't even think of God even by accident, you see. Is more like the situation here. So he was thinking, well, I've heard from my guru that God exists beyond form, and then I've heard from others that God is with form. Which one? So I'll go to the temple and ask God. So he makes his way with his staff, you see, goes to the temple, feels his way up, goes in the door, stands in front of the Murti, this divine deity, right? That has been worshipped for decades, maybe centuries, every day, 2 or 3 times a day with flowers. You don't think there's going to be some special energy in that image when all these people have been worshipping that so long? Qualified priests and pujaris and Brahmans and people coming with their devotions and all. Yeah, ritual worship has its problem, but it also has its deep depths. And you can't pull the carpet out from under people who are engaging in that kind of worship just because you think God is formless and only. You see. Sri Ramakrishna used to ask you, if you came to him, do you believe in God with form or beyond form? M., the writer of the Gospel of Ramakrishna, he said, well, I believe in God without form, beyond form. And Sri Ramakrishna said, that's very good, but don't ever think your own way is the only right way. One of the first slaps to M's ego he got. So back to the story, the blind man goes up the stairs and he's feeling with his staff, you see. So he passes his staff one way and it doesn't hit anything, you see. Standing before the deity, so it misses, as it were, the deity. And he says to himself, oh, I guess God is formless. And then he passes it back the other way and it bumps into the deity. Oh, I think God has form then. So he left knowing the truth. God is with form and beyond form both, not one or the other. And he probably found out when he had that jhana samadhi one day, under a tree or in the wilderness or up on a mountain or somewhere, that God was beyond both form and formlessness too. That was 3 hints in one. See, not just 2 mints, but 3 hints. So with this kind of realization going on, jhana samadhi, then the depths of consciousness, of your own consciousness, can be plumbed. You have a device to sound the depths. And now you're off on your journey, you see. There's a beautiful song in India, the first lines of which go, "O self, O little self, you're just a sparkling fish, sporting in the shallows of relative existence, where death is granted his fishing grounds. Where death is granted his fishing grounds." And later in the song it says, "Quick, dive deep, so death's net can't touch you." See? So somebody sat down and said, I'm going to write a song. Should I put "Ooh Baby" in it? Or should I put "Come on, come on, twist and shout"? What should I use as the lyrics of my song? I think I'll write something more profound. See, probably he had jhana samadhi. See? And came out of jhana samadhi and he said, I think I'll try and explain how relative existence has its shallows and it has its depth. Now, when I went to my teacher, Swami Sheshananda, when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, until he passed away in his 90s, he used to say that all the time from the podium, from the speaking Vedanta, in a voice like a lion's roar. He was very much like Vivekananda in that regard. He used to talk about that. If you sport on the surface of consciousness, then you get tossed by its waves, he would say. But if you dive deep into the depths of consciousness, it's all peace, peace, peace. And that appealed to me very much, see, because I liked peace first and foremost. Later on, I read Holy Mother, and she said, you need peace first and foremost. If you have restless mind or dull mind, you can't get anything in life, not even on the surface. Because there are some things to get on the surface, money and notoriety. If you take them in stride, they're not that bad. But you'll never even get those with a restless mind or a slothful mind, you see. So all of this, one of my usual preambles, trying to warm myself up to the topic, and yourselves as well, of food, prana, and sadhana, thank you. Shouldn't leave that out. Food, prana, and sadhana, so that we can get to Brahman, that stunned state of jhana samadhi. Call it what you will. Nirvana, Satori, Buddha nature. The Muslims call it Fana, beatific vision, if you will. Meister Eckhart used that term in Christianity. He was one of the few that we were fairly certain had that non-dual samadhi. In Christendom, that is. So, food, prana, and sadhana is a very valuable teaching that we want to get into. Now, most of you have seen the old war horse chart that I've been using. It's actually on the wall of our ashram here, and we placed it in the wall of our Portland ashram too, in Oregon. And it's about the role of food and prana in self-realization. Another name or title we could use today. My contention with the 60s, where I was also growing up, I was long hair too, but I was a long-haired musician, classic musician. Classical musicians were allowed to have long hair in society without being given too much flack about it. So I was there amongst the long-haired hippies, they called them, but I had long hair as a classical musician, so I fit right in, you see. So my contention with that whole period, or let's say one of them, because drugs was one that I didn't agree with. After I experimented a little with it myself, we all probably had our experiences with ganja, as they call it in India. But after I got over that phase and found out that it was not productive for spiritual life, gave it up. Then other things came forward. Food was one of them right at the beginning. At the time they were teaching Kundalini Yoga. The Kundalini Yoga is probably the most mystical, therefore the most sensational of all the Indian darshanas. By darshanas I mean yoga, that is the eight-limbed yoga, Patanjali, and Vedanta, and Sankhya Yoga, the 24 cosmic principles yoga, and others like Buddhism, was beginning to come on the scene through the Zen Roshis that were coming from Japan. So, of all of those darshanas that were being taught, Tantra too was on the scene in its surface form, probably, say. But Kundalini Yoga had a very strong relationship with both Tantra and with Vedanta. There's actually an Upanishad, one of the 108 Upanishads, entitled the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad. I looked into it and studied it to find out what the relationship was in the old days between Kundalini and Vedanta. Because Kundalini usually is kind of looked at as its own system, or maybe more tantric, you see, because if you're talking about Kundalini, you're talking about Divine Mother, right? Everyone loves Divine Mother, and people were even infatuated with her back there in the 60s. You say, oh, there's Mother Reality. The founder of our SRV association here, that's what attracted him to Vedanta. When he read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and found out that Sri Ramakrishna was worshipping divine reality as feminine, then that, being raised in the masculine ideal on Christianity and Judaism and so forth, that was a real revelation to him, and he got immediately attracted. That was at the Vedanta Society in New York, one of them. Swami Nikhilananda was his teacher at the time. So Kundalini Yoga has obviously that connection with form, mother, you see, God with form, dynamic form in her case. So when it was being taught back in the early days, there was no mention of food around it. Food was something that kind of came in later. You see, we should start getting back to the land, and we should not spray our food. We should live organically, and so forth and so on. Actually, let's make food our whole sadhana. If we just eat right, we're fine. You see, we don't need to do anything else. So there wasn't a lot of depth to it, but it was a good beginning. But what was being taught in terms of Kundalini Yoga was nerves, and physical nerves, and Hatha Yoga, and breathing exercises. Those were big, you see. But the idea of purifying your nadis before you ran consciousness along them, because consciousness comes from your mind, not your brain, your mind. It's intelligence, really. Intelligence is the sign of consciousness. If you have intelligence in you, you could probably make a claim for the fact that you're not an animal. You see, you could walk up to a biologist or a scientist, or see anyone in the medical profession and say, I'm not a human, an animal. I'm a human being with intelligence. I have higher intelligence. And then, therefore, you could make a case for yourself of being originless, of being beyond the evolutionary process, whereas they're trying to route you into the evolutionary process all the time. My teacher used to have a contention with that. Speaking of contentions, he'd say, those people, scientists and so forth, they're trying to convince me that to see my relatives, I have to go to the zoo. But he could trace his relatives. In India, they trace their relatives way back to Krishna, Ram, into lands and realms that go far beyond this world, with its idea about matter only. It's a material only idea. It's senses only idea. The 5 senses and the 5 elements, that's all we need. It's all we want. So no higher intelligence in that, really. It's really much just sensual experience. And we know from enough decades of sensual experience in the West what's happening to us as a result of not having higher intelligence in the quotient, don't we? I mean, you can complain about pollution, and you can complain about all sorts of birth defects, and you can complain about scattered mind and various things, but you're going to have to look back and see how we got into this situation in the first place by not taking account of our higher intelligence and using it, simply put. So my point here is that intelligence is a sign of consciousness. And when I say consciousness, I don't mean our everyday consciousness of brain and senses. I mean consciousness with a capital C. What word can we use for it in the West? We have to go to Sanskrit and say Chaitanya. See, that is consciousness. And consciousness is what you meditate upon if you want the origin, if you want to go to the origin of all this. In other words, evolution is taking you away from the origin. You'd have to involve, right, to get to the origin, the source of origin. So as you involve, as we know, by such great teachings as 24 Cosmic Principles, you get subtler and subtler. If you want to put it most simply, you go from your waking to your dream to your deep sleep, and you'll find out that everything is stored in seed form in your deep sleep. Everything is there. So when we talk about food and the need to purify food so that when you eat pure food and you get pure energy and so forth, that you'll have a way to return to this origin. Now this is a chart that I created for all of us about 3 days ago. And at the time I wasn't quite sure what I was going to fill the middle with, but as I thought about the Indian darshanas, I began to see that a sort of conclusion, an amalgam of things that you might put forth, like kind of 4 pillars of the building. And that would be food, prana, psychic prana, and Shakti power. Basically, these are 4 great steps inward. And food is an incredibly important portion of that first pillar, if you're coming outside in. If you think I'm taking a spiritual journey, you find yourself out here with a body-mind mechanism, and you want to find beyond what's beyond your body-brain, then you're going to want to meditate on subtler and subtler principles. If you meditate on your dreams, for instance, that's meditating on another realm. It's not just a figment of your imagination, an hallucination of your mind. You can actually visit your dreams and take your consciousness with you. And she's pressing my tongue about now, but I've had some very profound experiences of being conscious in dream myself. And being one with the Ishtam and merging with the Divine Mother Kali. Those experiences are rare, for any practitioner. There are songs in India written about them. That yogis retire into dark mountain caves and meditate upon her Because when they see her light, if they're in the darkness, her scintillating light will be all the more pronounced, you see. If you're out in the sun, maybe that light, some of its glory might be taken away. Like in the Upanishads, the man meditates and said, "Oh Lord, I'm about to leave the body consciously. Would you take the light of the sun away, please? Because it's taking away from the light of the Atman, you see, from the light of your glory. The sun's in the way, you see. It's a dull light. It's an outer light. I don't want it anymore. So I'm going to an inner light, a source of origin, place where everything emanated from, where these rays come from. See, like there, on this chart that we're now taking up. As the rays of the sun become united with it at the time of its setting and shine forth again when it rises, all the senses merged into the superior God called the mind when it sleeps. At that time, prana alone remains awake in that city. That's out of the Prashna Upanishad. Prashna Upanishad is, along with the Taittiriya Upanishad, are probably two of the most authoritative voices we have about prana, about life force, and what it entails. So there, just like when the sun sets, all its rays just return to it, you see. Just like that, everything outside here returns to that sun, that superior God called the mind, when it sets, when it sleeps, when it dies, you see, when the outer senses are turned off. And then when it rises again, say in a new incarnation, or when you wake up in the morning, all these rays come back, you see. The mind projects it, and the mind withdraws it all the time, on an individual, collective, and cosmic level. And the prana stays awake in that city. You see what they're saying there. There's got to be a dynamic energy. Ultimately, it's going to be Shakti. But in the meantime, she has her prana. She's not cast more to do than to be there for every little breath you take, you see, to watch every little blade of grass grow, to watch the birth of every insect, animal, and plant and human. The prana is doing that. It's overseeing all this naturally. It flows back and forth, back and forth. Like this quote here, you see, the main one, with Swami Vivekananda in back of it. The prana comes into the body from the Atman by an act of the mind. Whatever the mind thinks, that flows in and out via the prana, and verily leads, along with the Atman, unto the desired realm. So the prana will take your thoughts and in and out, you see. And if you're not aware of what's doing the taking, that is the coming and the going, the arriving and departures of your own consciousness, then you don't understand the prana yet. I've often said in my decades of teaching and sharing the Dharma that Vivekananda made that great statement about the two missing things in our way of thinking here in the West, one being prana and one being tanmatras. Tanmatras are subtle elements. See, here's the gross elements, right? Out here, air, earth, fire, water, and ether, all congealing into objects. But there are subtle objects in your dream state. Like the other night in a dream, I took a drink of water. You see, I asked, somebody had given me a cup of hot liquid, and I said, I drank part of that, poured the rest into the dream sink, you see, and walked up to the person and said, give me a cold liquid. And they gave me water in a container, and there was a little bit of lemon floating in it, you see, like we like, and I just drank that. So I had water in a dream, I had fruit in a dream, I had a container in a dream, I had a hand in a dream, I had a mouth and tongue in a dream. That's called tanmatras, basically. You have objects made of subtle materials in your dream. And if your consciousness is there, that particular night my consciousness was there fully, then this is a real to you. And later that same night, I was standing in water in the dream, same dream. And I looked up in the sky and I said, this is a dream, and I'm going to leave this dream. And I woke up in my bed. So I was aware of both the dream and the waking state, aware of my connection back to the body, through the silver cord, your spine, as it were, but in a subtle sense, and then into the dream too. See, so being aware of both at once is a little bit off-putting, you see, which is real, which I'm perfectly happy here, but I can go back, you see. But the thought occurred to me, can I go back consciously? So I looked up in the sky and I prayed to the one almighty mother, the Shakti power and everything, and I said a 12-syllable mantra and immediately back in my body, in full cognition of having had that dream and everything about it. So this kind of experience takes you between waking and dream state. Now that's one simple way of putting how prana is operating. Now, as I left the realm of dream and came into the waking state, it happened lightning quick. I projected that dream and I took it away in such a swift fashion that it was impossible to see the prana flow from the subtle body back into the gross body, you see. But that's what the seers have mastered, you see. That's what, say, Karmapa or Dalai Lama have mastered for 14 lifetimes, so that when they leave the body, they can consciously project themselves into their next subtle body, maybe a causal body, and they can do the same in reverse. Sri Aurobindo called it going up and down the amber stairs of birth and death. So concentrating upon this flow of prana through the nadis, through the channels that it goes. Because you have channels in your arm, right? Blood and energy is going through them. But inside of each of those nerves, there are 100,000 other nerves that are not in the physical realm. And your mind is coursing along those from waking, dreaming to deep sleep. Through the many chambers of the Father's mansion, it goes, you see. And it has to learn to do this consciously. So this is what making connection between living prana and a luminous mind is about. This is manaha prana sambandha. When I came across that word in the Sanskrit dictionary, I thought, how marvelous, see, that there are thinkers somewhere that thought about connecting the body to the prana to the mind. See, as if all were one unit. It's one consciousness. You always hear that all as one, but you can never prove it to yourself because you have to take someone's hearsay about it. But no, you can go to the Dharma, especially of India, and you can find these pockets of time where great seers either evinced, that is, epitomized the movement of prana through different states, or came back and wrote about it and helped teach you. See, Kundalini system is a system like that. It talks about chakras, and it talks about consciousness rising and up the chakras and so forth. So that is very much based in pure food. Now you see here, as we start into this chart, food is the very first pillar, as I said. And you gain, the first thing you want to do with food is get mukhya prana, it's called strength. You have to get strength out of food. If your food is not giving you strength for spiritual life, strength for mental disciplines, austerities, strength for doing your daily work even, hopefully karma yoga, work is worship, work without desire for fruits, as Krishna says, those three yogas, then something's wrong in the quotient, you see. The food may be stagnant and stale, it may be tasteless, it may be overcooked, it may be impure, it may be refuse, see, and you're still eating it. So that's going to be something you want to clear up. Prasad, it's called, which is why I just chanted Om Annapurna Sadapurna Shankara Prana Valape Jnana Vairagyam Siddhartham Bhiksham Devi Cha Parvati. Parvati is the mother of the universe. O Mother of the Universe, may you open all the channels and clear up everything. See, it's all food. Help us to realize that it's all food. Om Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantabyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. You receive the teaching of the Dharma from that sloka by meditating deeply upon it, that all this is food, and that you have to offer it reverently, you have to receive it reverently, you have to realize that the energy in the food is prana, and come to the highest realization after Brahma Karma Samadhi. Get samadhi after you destroy your karmas. Neutralize your karmas, if you want to put it that way. So, if you're not getting strength from food, then something's missing in that connection. You have to open the nadis between food and strength. See, if you want to put it that way. We know there are people who get tremendously strong bodies by exercise. It's actually become another fad in current times. It's called mixed martial arts and so forth. You see, people are buffing up their bodies so that they can fight. But you see that there's no connection between the physical strength that takes you beyond the body. You're going to need a kind of strength that's going to allow you to sit like this, in this posture, for hours at a time, like Lord Buddha did under the bo tree. You're going to need the kind of strength that builds character in you, that makes you non-violent, not just violent. You see, it helps you get over the tendency to want to compete and fight with others. And you want to also incur the kind of strength that is going to make you fit for austerity, for sadhana. So food, prana, sadhana, the name of this class, a series of 5 classes. So gain strength. There's a beautiful song about Vivekananda, in fact, where it's sung.
Himadrer ashrame jayantam nirmita bujagam shradvini tivrite mutane stavoyam yahapatet sabhatya tanaraha sashaktim parusham viragam charjati narendra shashave narendra yavane narendra kridane narendra shikshane narendra palane narendra yarpane vivekanandate prabhate pranjali vivekanandate prabhate pranjali.
It says, to all those who would attain true freedom, we encourage the chanting of this hymn, composed in a sacred Himalayan mountain retreat. Devoted recitation of these verses on Swami Vivekananda imbues one with physical strength, mental strength, and spiritual power, and increases discrimination and detachment. In this brilliant dawn, called the collective awakening of all beings to the highest truth, we offer Narendranath, the leader of souls, our eternal salutations. So, this hymn of some 13 verses was composed in a sacred Himalayan retreat by this Swami, and all dedicated to Swami Vivekananda, who had this incredible strength, see. And then it goes on, not only physical vigor, but mental strength. The strength to purify the nadis, the strength to move inside without fear, the strength to explore all the chambers of the Father's mansion, to go anywhere and to help souls at all levels, and also the strength of spiritual power. See, spiritual power is rare, so that he could come and convince hundreds and thousands of young men and quite a few young women to give up the world. No one's ever done that in our whole history. There hasn't been a soul that's been able to do that. And that belonged to Narendranath, the Lord of Men. He was the one that accomplished that in this age. So, despite our small numbers here, amongst the basically householder fold, there is an organization that has burgeoned with hundreds and thousands of souls who all gave up the world because that man came to Earth. In 1893, he came to the West too. And he was bringing this same truth filled with spiritual vigor and physical vigor and mental learning, Dharma and so forth, to all of us. And that's why we're sitting here. We wouldn't be here if he hadn't come in 1893. So this is how to make a connection in the divine personality. Just like the Christians do with Christ and the Buddhists do with Lord Buddha. The divine personality is also God with form. Pass your staff and let it hit upon that if you're blind. And then pass it back the other way and you'll find out that you can see. You have inner perception. You see in dreams and you can see beyond dreams. Utistata jagrata prapya varoni bodhata. Vivekananda used to love that chant. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. For sharp as a razor's edge is the spiritual path, and difficult to navigate, so say the wise. So out of the Upanishads and Vedas, that great chant was on Swami's lips all the time, and on his mind, and other chants were on his mind as well. And so he used to say, you must first gain strength. Where else do we hear that teaching? Can all of you think back about a month and a half ago to a chart that was sitting right here on this stand, all about Shankara's 8 strata of spiritual attainment. And can you remember what they were? First one was
Human birth.
a human birth. The second one was strength of body. So Shankara in 700 AD also, you see back some 1300, 1400 years from Vivekananda, was talking about the import of strength of body. You need that very much. So this strength of body can come to you and you can then move on. Increase your stamina. See, you need to be able to sit for a long time. Have any of you taken these hour-long meditation retreats? I'm not talking about just hiking through the woods and doing a vision quest. This is an inner vision quest that we must be about now. Transcendent of the worlds of name and form, we must know ourselves to the very core, root and core of our being, because that's where everything has come from. See, all of this has proceeded from mind. Mind is an interior realm, consisting simply put of swapna and sushupti, dream and deep sleep. We must know those realms. Waking state is A, dreaming state is U, and the deep sleep state is M. What does that spell? Om, yes. So those 3 matras of Om, if they're left unconnected, there is ignorance. If they're connected, then there is bliss. Who said that? Lord Vashishta said that. You must connect the 3 matras of Om. Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Others said it too, of course. But Vashishta was very early on in his way of connecting the 3 matras of Om. So another person who was big on that teaching was Pipalada. Some of his quotes we were using here in this beautiful chart. So as we move through this, manaha, mind, prana, vital force, sambandha, to connect intrinsically. Manaha prana sambandha is the word in Sanskrit that has to do with connecting body, prana, and mind, so that you can have a luminous mind like him, Lord Shiva. You want to have that luminous mind, be master of the 3 phases of time, past, present, and future, and have this innate, deep realization of your true nature, which we call Atman here in Vedanta. So there's that quote that we were just referring to. From pure food, one gets pure blood. From pure blood, pure energy. That's prana. From pure energy comes pure thoughts, and from pure thoughts one gets pure mind. So that's a 3 or 4-fold connection all at once in one sentence, as it were, from Holy Mother, Sri Ramakrishna's divine consort, who was my teacher's teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji's Maharaja's initiatory guru. So that's a very powerful saying, but very simply put, you see, pure food, you get pure blood. So that's going to entail part of the process, you see. Impure food, impure blood is not allowing you to gain strength. So it's an immediate block, impediment. Granti, not Sanskrit, to your inner progress. If you have those kinds of blocks and you're put off, you just become a material girl living in a material world. See? You give up all inner pursuit. But how about at least being an ethereal girl living in a material world? You see? That is, waking up your prana and you reach the level of the ethers, ethereal, right? Now you know there's not just one ether called the Bhutakasha, but there's another ether called Pranakasha. So you move one world in, see, when you move to the prana, the vital force, the life force. It's asleep. It's awake in the city when everything else sleeps. Remember, it's watching over everything like a hawk from its nest. They say in the Upanishads. See, maybe silent and quiet now, but it's watching. See, and it can move in and out at any time. You should be able to use that. So gain that strength from pure food, and of course, the role of food and prana in self-realization. We can show that chart later as a more consummate package. But taking this new chart, it's going to involve that we increase our stamina. We need to not just gain strength and use it for physical means, but we have to increase our stamina for certain austerities. And of course, these are going to come later along the path that's proposed here. Next thing you're going to have to do is master your prana. Master your posture. Master your posture, it says there. So you need to be able to sit like this, cross-legged for long periods of time. If you are a chair yogi, like so many people in the West are, and older people necessarily have to be, then you just need to sit on the edge of your chair with your spine up. I was very fortunate as a young boy because I didn't. Lots of young Western teenagers slump, and so they get a habit of slumping and so forth. But a cello was put in my hand. See, you're going to play. How would you like to play that? I said yes. So my father went and bought one, and then I wish I hadn't said yes. You see, it was so hard to play. So when I finally got some level of mastery over it, I realized that I'd been sitting on the edge of my chair with a straight spine all those years. Mm-hmm. See, I didn't even have to practice good posture, because you have to sit on the edge, you play it, and you have to sit straight. No way that you can slump. Your music teacher's doing this for you, as, keep your arms up, your shoulders up, your arms forward, your bow straight. All these instructions are actually training you in posture. Well, I hope I don't come out of the mother's womb in my next lifetime, actually ever. But if I have to come out of my mother's womb in the next lifetime, I hope I don't come out like this, see, in that mudra. And they're going to look at him and say, put a cello in his hands again. Like my brother, for violin. Those are mudras, positions you get into. See, a lot of people are going to come out like this now. See. I'll put a cell phone in. So this posture is very important. And of course, as we go along here, you can recognize yoga, right? 8-limbed yoga, if you know anything about it. This is the 3rd and 4th limb you're working on. Again, you might say back to gain strength and increase stamina, both body and mind are going to do that if you practice the first 2 limbs. What are they? the 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas. Non-violence in thought, word, and deed is first. Truthfulness is second. And then celibacy, or moderation in all sensual appetites, brahmacharya and so forth. And non-coveting of other people's goods. And it would be good for the West to learn that one, finally. And study of scriptures and austerity and purity, shuddhi, is one of them. So, in order to get this kind of purity going, you can just take up the 8-limb yoga, and the 5 yamas and niyamas will put you in good state right away for what's to come. See? Then when you try and master your posture, it'll be a matter of ease. Like playing the cello made it easy for me. Studying the scriptures make it easy for you see. Because I remember when I was in my 20s, and I got interested in the scriptures, actually at 20, and I picked it up, and I was sitting like this, reading it. I didn't sit in a chair or lay down with a book, with my feet up or something, you see. As a musician, I was already trained in good posture, so if I did that well in good posture, then I'm going to do this well in good posture. And so if I read the scriptures, the wisdom's going to get up my spine to my brain, see. And then if I can make connections here, it can get from my brain to my mind. Because brain and mind are two different things. You'd only know that if you had a conscious death and saw the brain deteriorate. You see, or if you had the onset of early Alzheimer's, you see, you got outside of your mind, your brain, and in your mind and said, "Oh, that brain's not working anymore. I think I'll give up that whole package." One of my teachers, Swami Damodar Nandaji Maharaj, gave up his body into the river 6 months ago. He just walked there and gave it up on crutches. See? Put his crutches aside. They have it on tape. The only reason it's on tape is because of the security measures they had to take at the monastery because of the terrorists. See? So had everything on tape. About 3 a.m, there he goes, across the compound on his crutches. Put him aside, said his mantra, got into the river and floated away. That's one of 4 ways in which a monk can give up the body. You can hurl yourself off a cliff. You can fast till you die. You see, not eat, just stop eating. Some people even practice that in householder realm. So anyway, the giving up the body at that time, it's no big deal. Wouldn't have been any big deal earlier for a soul like that. But if you can be some use, be some help to people, you should be, you see. But how are you going to do that if you haven't have mastered great strength and stamina? How are you going to do that? See? You'll have fears in your mind, you'll brood, you'll have doubts about what you're doing. What to speak of later on, just to raise your prana and be able to remember as you drowned the mantra. See, they said they found his body downriver later, and his hands were like this. That's how you do the mantra on your hand. So you remember the name of the Divine Mother in the face of death. The mantra you were given by your guru when you were younger. Or the Mahavakya that you are stating if you're a lover of God with beyond form. See, you're saying a Mahavakya as you give up the body. All of this is based in the firm courage of your convictions, you see, that consciousness exists beyond the body, and that intelligence is one of its signs, and that prana is another of its signs. Otherwise you wouldn't have tried to purify your prana in the first place by eating good food. You'd be like the rest of them out there. Let's just drink alcohol, pickle our bones in alcohol, from the head to the foot, you see. There's an old song about that, you see. I used to sing that in bluegrass. When I die, don't bury me at all, just pickle my bones in alcohol. Put a bottle of booze from my head to feet, then I'm sure I'll keep. Remember it? It's about a man and his wife who just lived with a little brown jug. As long as they had their little brown jug full of alcohol, they were happy. See? Well, there's the roots of America. See? So you can be like them, you see, or you can begin attenuating your food habits. You can begin seeking food that isn't so impure. See, well, the first prasadam is called anaprasadam. And in fact, before we proceed too much further and get over to the second pillar of prana, let's look quickly at food as Brahman, because this is another new chart that was just created for this series. Now, this Upanishad that I mentioned before, remember, because if you want to refer, then go read the Prajna Upanishad or the Taittiriya Upanishad. Or you can come to classes that I'm giving on the Taittiriya Upanishad, and of course that's on the mainland right now, and Svetasvatara Upanishad. But there are certain of the 108 Upanishads, 11 of them to be explicit. 2 of them are about the prana. They have more about the prana than any other scripture in the world. It's probably the greatest sources for life force. Remember what Vivekananda said was missing in our thinking. We don't know what connects anything that we do to what's inside. So we don't believe in what's inside. It's really that simple, you see. But if you find the connection to prana, life force, then you know why your lungs breathe. You're not just huffing and puffing like a billows. That's not going to get you enlightenment. And you know why your arms move, and you know why your eyes see. You know there's a power in your eyes and a power in your ears. And they may be limited, but then you can also begin to reason with yourself that there's a power of the 5 subtle senses inside of you. You see in a dream, you hear in a dream, you taste in a dream, drink water in a dream. Then all of a sudden you're on the path of this. It's a clue, it's a hint, you see, that there is an inner life, that there is another body beyond the gross body. It's called the subtle body. They had a word for it in ancient times, sukshma, sharira. It's the subtle body, or linga sharira. So you go deeper inside and you find other bodies, all the way up to a causal body that has no form. And there's your induction into the rarest of all Jnana wisdom. You see, oh, maybe I can take my consciousness into the formless realm. What's that going to be like? Great adventure of consciousness, you see. So from the Taittiriya Upanishad, here's what we hear. Speaking of connections, from the Atman, ether came. From ether, air. From air, fire. From fire, water. From water, earth. From the earth, herbs came to be, and from herbs, food. From food came the body. That one indeed is the person consisting of the essence of food. You can make the connection between Brahman and food right there in one sloka out of the Taittiriya Upanishad. You are indeed that person consisting of the essence of food. Now you can do the whole discrimination process, neti neti and so forth, and say, I'm not the body, I'm not the body. And that's one step. But when you get to a stage like that, or a stage like this whole mantra here that I've taken apart for you, Brahmarpanam Brahmavir, then you're not making divisions anymore. You're not causing separations anymore. You had to do that at some point because you weren't clear of the connections. But when the connections are all firing, all the synapses are firing, as they say, all the pistons are firing, you have a full 6-pack of non-alcoholic beer in your hand, then you're fine, you see. Spiritual life will open up to you. Everything should open up to you in your dreams, your deep sleep, your meditations. It should all be a matter of natural course, shouldn't it? So, look quickly then, in the time remaining in our first half. Here's the whole mantra taken apart. That is, if we want to do it again in Sanskrit, Brahmarpana, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavihi, Brahmagnel, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaivatena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. So if you take the 5 koshas and apply them to this, you see Annamaya kosha is Brahman is food, right? Everything here consists of food. The body is made of food. The bodies of others that you're eating are made of food. And when you die, you'll become food for others. See, your body will become food for others. Flames, that's the god of fire that's eating you, right? Insects, that's your Bhuta Yagya. You see, you're sacrificing yourself to all beings, right? Sacrifice yourself to the ancestors, you sacrifice yourself to the gods, to the rishis. Well, below those echelons, sacrifice yourself to the elementals, and you sacrifice yourself to the mankind. Mankind consists of man, animals, insects, and plants. That's the whole echelon of sacrifice you're doing. So you come out of that and you go into it, right? In the spirit of conscious sacrifice. You know, the Tibetan Buddhists, when their bodies are old, I mean, talk about my teacher giving himself into the river a few minutes ago. For the Tibetan Buddhist, Rinpoche or Tulku, some of them, well, when my body gets old and I die, just take me out there on Vulture Peak, you see, and throw me in a pile. And the vultures will come and eat me, and that's my last sacrifice, you see. That's my last act of goodwill to all living beings. Maybe some vulture who eats some very enlightened Rinpoche will all of a sudden get enlightened. I just ate the Rinpoche's eyeball, see, on Vulture Peak. I can see now, yeah. Maybe he'll give up his vulture form and move on, involve. So whatever the case may be in these different ideologies of India, in this case Vedanta and Buddhism, we find out that the Annamaya kosha, the first sheath, is directly associated there. Now, Brahma Arpana, we say Brahma Arpanam, but Brahma Arpanam means devoutly offered. Arpana is offering. Arpana is actually worship. It's one of the 8 devotional elements of Narada's Bhakti Yoga is to do Arpanam, to offer. So we're now devoutly offering to Brahman everything. That's the first thing. We have to do it consciously. So if you're taking food, you're going to want to offer it into the fire inside of you. Fire inside of you consists on a lot of different levels. The fire of digestion. It's the fire of energy produced by the food. Pranic fire. It's the fire of knowledge out of which the energy is going to culminate, right? Because you have strength of body, then you're going to be able to raise your prana. And if you don't, then the connections are meddled with, you see, like stepping on a hose. Please step off that hose so the water can move through, you see. Or Sri Ramakrishna's story about the monkeys messing with the telegraph wire between the 2 villages, right? So one guy's sending ferociously, and the other village, no one's receiving, you see. He's got all this energy, but it's not going through. So a road crew has to go out there, and put those 2 lines back together and chase the monkeys away. Well, this is what this is all about, you see. Send the road crew out on your own behalf, you see, and make these connections with pure food. Pure food here, I mean, sorry to jump, but pure food means something very interesting. If we want to look at the first clarity here. The 5 defects in food, right? You'd think that the way we think in the West is, it's not organic, it's been sprayed, you see. Well, that's just basic, The real impurities of food come out of the mind, because everything comes from the mind. So in this case, the 5 defects in food are poor soil and lack of nutrients, and lack of sunshine. See, food then won't get its chance to mature. Selfish purpose while harvesting takes import. So somebody's mass producing your food for a purpose, for them. A selfish person, that's a defect in food. See? I mean, there are ramifications there we can all talk about, as far as what's happening to farms right now and GMO and the whole things. Bringing it current, we could go and look into that. But following these ancient teachings, we can see that they had a very good handle on those things back then. Probably not as many problems as we have nowadays with them. So selfish purpose while harvesting is going to be one of the problems. Lack of awareness when processing. You're not feeding all beings for the good of all beings. You're trying to make money out of it, or your awareness is not very high. Impure mood while preparing. That is, whoever prepares your food is in a foul mood, or not a very good mood, a dull mood or a restless mood, and that energy is getting into your food. Say at restaurants, or in non-dharmic households, as your mother and father fed you out of cans, so forth, you see, in the old days, you see. Ground beef, you see. They fed you ground beef from some poor fear-struck cow, you see, in some lot somewhere, some chicken that had been kept in a cage, you see. Now they have free-range chickens, right? We're free. Eat our eggs. You'll be free too. So all of this you can see is very mental, isn't it? Mental dabbaga. And the failure to bless and consecrate comes in that train too. You want to then use the mantra that you get, this mantra, and say it over food, because this mantra has been said over food for a long time. And it's out of Sri Krishna's Gita, of course, Bhagavad Gita, Song Celestial, and it has been culled out. Just like the Gita itself was culled out from the Mahabharata as one of its chapters, then out of the Gita that was culled out of the Mahabharata, this was culled out as the food blessing for the Vedantists. And so we must offer consciously, we want to remove the defects of food, for one thing. Then we have to, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi, if it is sanctified article given as the oblation, you want to give it as an oblation. By Brahman is offered into the fire of Brahman, sometimes is how they say this. By Brahman is offered into the fire of Brahman, for Brahman. So they're trying to make these connections for us that are already there, but which we in our ignorance have struck apart. See? So food isn't accomplishing what it should for us, a higher purpose. Call it materialism, or just call it sensualism, or just call it pleasure. Whatever the reason is for why you're eating, you're not taking into account that there are these ways of opening up these channels, which will open up the prana and also give you much, much more enjoyment, if that's what you're seeking, of food. I was reading a sloka in the Bhaja Govindam today, let's see, which is a beautiful hymn we like to sing quite often. Practice concentration or indulge in sense enjoyment. Find your pleasure in company or find it in solitude. That one alone is happy, verily happy, whose mind dwells in Brahman all the time. So if you find your happiness in sense enjoyment, fine. Just think of Brahman all the time. This is written by a monk, see, Acharya of the Shankara order. He doesn't have any problem with you if you like pleasure. He just says, just think of Brahman all the time and your pleasure will be enhanced thousandfold. Otherwise not. Otherwise you might start ingesting poison as food. See, and poison in your food as poison turns into poison in your blood. It turns into poisonous thoughts and poisonous mind. See, so we have that on good record. So, by devoutly offered, in the sanctified is the sanctified article given at the oblation, given as the oblation, placed into the fire of Brahman, Brahmagna, Agni is the god of fire, For Brahman alone, Brahmahutam. Brahmanahutam. So that's the first line, right? Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagnau, Brahmanahutam. Breath, taken with prana, of course. Brahmaivatena gantavyam. Brahma eva is the actual taking apart of Sanskrit. Tena gantavyam. So it's the one Brahman can be reached. Eva, Brahma eva. Brahmaiva we call it as we chant it. So the one Brahman can be reached only by those absorbed in action as Brahman. So it even brings in the karma yoga aspect of your being. You see, if you're in a body, you must act, you must breathe. Breathing is a kind of action. Thinking is a kind of action. Your thoughts move, so they act. See, and thought is father to the deed, right? So it's all connected. And if we have taken apart those two lines of that sloka, then we can apply our 5 sheaths. The sheath of food there, the sheath of prana here, right? Brahmagnau, energy. The sheath of mind here, Brahman is thought. You offer it into Brahman alone by your thought. Vijnanamaya Koshya, Brahman as intelligence. That is, your intelligence is going to reach Brahman. All the other things, like stages of a rocket, are going to fall away. Your body's going to fall away. Eventually your prana is going to fall away. Your mind is going to fall away. And your intelligence will be left. See, first sign of consciousness, right? The first compound out of Brahman is intelligence, Vivekananda said. Knowledge, wisdom, intelligence might not be Brahman, but it's the first compound of Brahman, is how he put it. So now you're left, all the stages of that rocket have fallen away, and you're left with just your intelligence, you see. The third eye of wisdom, if you want to put it that way. And by that, you're going to become absorbed in Brahman. And all your action from then on is going to be nothing but Brahman. I had a very powerful dream vision recently in which I wasn't just trying to see Ramakrishna, I was walking around as Ramakrishna. My whole dream was as Ramakrishna. Occasionally I would get out of his body and look at me as Ramakrishna and see me. See? Mm. So, and then he looked at me at one point, and then I merged with him again. The whole dream was as Ramakrishna. So I and my Father are one, not just in some powerful vision type of way, but actually. Food is Brahman, actually. See, all is Brahman, actually. But if you don't know the connections in between, or if the connections have been interfered with by the little monkeys of your mind, then you're not going to have this full realization. Well, when we say pure conscious awareness, we don't mean just intellectual acumen or some insight or a few visions and so forth, eating good food, pure food and so forth. We mean the whole shooting match, from the lowest stage to the highest, inclusive of all. Integration, see, synthesis, Purna Yoga, it's been called. Now, our break is upon us, so let's read this final quote from the Taittiriya Upanishad. In fact, we'll take this up in Portland in about a month as we return, or 6 weeks, as we return to the Taittiriya Upanishad classes there. The celebrated rishi, Bhrigu, approached his father, Varuna, requesting, quote, "Revered sir, instruct me about Brahman," unquote. As a means to the knowledge of Brahman, Varuna taught him food. Then he taught him about the vital airs, that's prana, sight, hearing, and speech. Bhrigu then understood food. So what they're saying here in kind of esoteric terms is, you come to me and you ask about the highest, the non-dual Brahman, but maybe you ought to make the connections on the way there. Let's teach you about food, your breath, and your senses, and how they're all connected, right? Didn't we just say out of ether came fire, came air, air from ether, and fire from air? these are the elements. We've shown you how they're connected and how one proceeds out of the other. See? And if you meditate on them, you reverse them in order. You take earth back into water, and water into fire, and fire into air, and air into ether. And that ether you're going to have to take and go somewhere with it, and that's into the ether of your senses, you see. It's the next prana. It's the next level of kosha, you see, that you're going to. And you're going to do this consciously, because along the way so much has gotten scattered along the path. We've lost things, you see. So when you walk the path of dreams tonight, it's sporadic. There's one dream here, and then one dream is over there, and none of it's connected, you see. You wake up going, I wonder what that meant. I better go to my sheikh or sheikha and ask them. Because the Sufis know about dreams, you see. I better go and ask them what that meant. Probably the answer is going to be, you better do some connecting here, because I can't interpret that mess, you see. If you go and say, well, I was in a jeweled palace with Muhammad last night, oh, that's all right, I know how to interpret that, you see. But not the case with this mess you brought me of scattered mind and sporadic experiences without any sense to them, any order. So Varuna taught Brigu this. Then Brigu then understood food. For all beings born here are born from food. Having been born, they remain alive by food. Upon departing the body, they enter into food, that is, become food for others. Having reflected on the nature of food, Brigu then asked Varuna, Blessed Sir, now instruct me about Brahman. Now instruct me about Brahman, that I have this secret. See, I have these connections inside me. Basically, my prana has been awakened. See? And that's what's coming next. We're going to have to make sure it's pure. We're going to have to control it, and we're going to have to raise it, just like you would raise her. See, it's penultimate to Shakti that you have this prana operating and pure. She won't accept cheap bribes. Can't walk up and say, will you awaken, O Kundalini Mother? Here, I've got this to help. Yeah. Better go purify that prana. I don't take foul energy, or broken energy, or erratic energy, or scattered energy, or sometimes on, sometimes off energy. You see, Vikshepa, it's called. So, this is the first time we've really gone through this chart in any depth. We showed it in Portland about in my last visit at the ashram there, but it's worth going through because then we know a little bit more about our food blessing. That's a connection in itself, isn't it? Is that you take it apart into 2-word or 3-word statements, you see, and understand their meaning. You can put them together in a way that's more cohesive now, and use it as a mantra to purify your food. Purify it of all these defects that are there. You don't know how valuable this is to people I teach in prison, because their food is not good. I've had lunch with them, I know. Would you like to have lunch with us, Babaji? Oh, not this time. I'll go back and have that experience again. Or I'll bring a sack lunch, usually. But basically, they can't really do anything. So we teach them this mantra and explain it to them in class. And a lot of them are doing that now. They say, yeah, I always say that over my food. I shut my eyes. And, the other inmates are laughing at me, but whatever. So I shut my eyes and I say that mantra over my food. And so, I'm removing the defects from food with the mantra. So prana first, then healthy prana, mukhya prana, then mantra. See, and this is what you're going to need to do. You see, eventually is select a guru and secure a mantra to purify that prana. It's going to be an important part of the package in order for you to get to higher spiritual life. All of this that I'm saying is already connection. You probably know it already, but it's one thing to connect something, it's one thing to run energy through it. See? Now, connect it and run your prana through it. See, consciously into your dream state tonight. Begin to live an integral life of the spirit and watch the spiritual vistas open up. It's all real. It's all real. Everything we've been told by the seers is all real. Here, let's take our break. Thank you. Om Bhadram Karnebihi Srinayama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabir Yajatraha Stirai Rangayishtushtuvam Sastanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuho Svastina Indra Vrida Shravaha Svastina Pusha Vishwadevaha Svastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Svastino Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual, hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting, and may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother of the universe with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.
Samvardaka Bhoga Samharaka Namostute. Sat Karma Preraka Dush Karma Varaka Sadguna Bhushita Namostute. Sadrupa Darshaka Chidrupa Basaka Chita Prasadaka Namostute. Kamini Kanchana Dosha Vibhanjana Swamiji Pujita Namostute. Tata Swarupa Matri Swarupa Rama Krishna Namostute.